Mm, the mm. All right. Today we'll be doing this simple analysis on GBPUSD. We're doing a top-down analysis, and I'll show you guys what I'm expecting for this session. So, um, going straight to the 1 hour time frame. Today is Tuesday, the 1st of October. Now, this is what I'm expecting from market structure based on the higher time frame. To skip up the top down analysis, I'm going to be focusing on the main push, which is this lower high that made this lower low. This is our zone of focus, right? So this lower high that made this lower low down here. We know we are currently in a bearish market, right? So until we make a new lower low, or we break out of this range and make a new higher high, then we can confirm that we have switched trend. But for now, we are still bearish, and this is the internal structure. So we came to the extreme of that supply, which I already explained previously. We came to the extreme, we tapped in on that zone, and we give a bearish break of structure to the downside. Right, after tapping on the higher time frame supply, grabbing all this trend line liquidity on the left, or this order flow liquidity, we led to bearish break of structure. This is the last higher low that made this higher high, breaking structure here. Now we switch trend and we broke structure to the downside after clearing all this liquidity. So we have our decisional supply and our extreme. So once we made this lower low, we didn't react of any zone here, but we came to this supply during the Asian session, and this was actually a weak supply for me because it was tapping in during the Asian session, and we can see all this liquidity was built there. So I was expecting price to sweep that zone first before we look for sales. So that was kind of my framework for Monday, but it didn't happen, and price just continued bearish. You can see all this mitigation, bearish because structure, breaking structure to the downside once more, showing us that currently the price is bearish. So this zone that price is reacting from is not actually a key zone, right? It's not actually a zone. So we know this might also be taken out, right? This is not actually a demand zone to look for buys that will change trend or whatsoever. So going down to the 50-minute time frame now, this is where I'll bring out the indicator and I'll show you how I frame my day for the London session. So based on this analysis that we just see now, currently price is bearish. Price is super bearish at this point, and one thing to also note is that we have all this mitigation right here, another mitigation, another mitigation. So you can see price is mitigating all the supply zones right here, and this is just order flow. You have to also be careful on that. So you have to understand that price is not going to grab that yet, so you need to frame yourself with the internal structure correctly, so you know when price might just show you that price is bearish, but eventually will continue bullish and take out all this liquidity, and maybe grab also previous this liquidity and come to this main supply zone, the higher time frame supply zone up there. So that's kind of the overview of the structure that I'm seeing. So my favorable scenario for my daily cycle for this day could be, there are a lot of roadmaps that price may follow if we are going to go bearish or bullish for this day. Remember, price might still be bearish and you can still look for buys. So it doesn't mean if price is bearish, we can look for buys. So you just have to understand when is that buy is going to happen and when is it going to be invalid. So you don't take buys when the bearish market has resumed. So first thing I know is that we have swept Asian low now, and this could be a form of smart money trap because price is currently bearish and we are not reacting off any valid demand zone. So the valid demand zone that I could see right now is this zone right here. This zone actually, when we are in a bearish market, it actually broke structure to the upside. So this was the demand zone that broke structure to the upside because it also grabbed liquidity down here. So this is the most valid demand zone. This is post BOS. This demand zone right here is not actually a strong demand zone. It didn't lead to a break of structure. It didn't even lead to this supply break of structure. So it's actually going to be a reaction point, and I'm not going to see a lot of movement from there. So I'll mark this out as a weak demand. We shouldn't see a lot of movement from there. So basically, price might just sweep low here and maybe just give us some bullish candle to the upside. Maybe when we arrive at this supply and we can see the bearish reaction, then we can take that sell on our London open to take out this liquidity down here, smart money trap, and maybe we can look for sales back down to this demand, and maybe for New York session we might have a reversal to hit a supply, and maybe the following day we continue bearish. So this is how I'm framing my day, and this is just one roadmap. The other roadmap could be if you are going to be looking for sales, right? This demand zone is not a strong one. Price might just come here, give a bit of reaction, then boom, sweep higher into the second sweep higher, taking out all those trend line, coming into the other supply there and continue bearish. So this is another roadmap. And other roadmap, if you want to look for buys, is price just give a bit of reaction from this demand here, then sweeps it. And price sweeps this demand, we can look for small buys to the upside to maybe mitigate this supply, and maybe from there price goes bearish. Or maybe with this inducement, with this run of liquidity of this demand, we could now tackle this trend line liquidity or the supply zones and maybe come to the main supply before we can continue bearish. So I'm not going to be married to any buyers right now. I'm not going to be married to the buyers that price is bearish, so we just look for sales. So if I see that sequential steps and development, then I'll frame myself according to that structure. And using my daily cycle, you will not go wrong when you do this, as opposed to just marking out your supply because you have seen a bearish break of structure. You just mark out your supply zone and you expect price to just come there and continue selling. So this might work out, but most likely most of the time it might not. So this is how I'm going to be framing myself. So let's quickly go down to the 1 minute time frame and do our final analysis there. Let's see what actually happened. Now remember, this supply is also Asian high, which is also a low probability might not work out. So we just frame ourselves. We have to wait for our lower time frame confirmation if we are going to sell there. So one thing I can see now on this session, this is 7:23. This is just maybe 30 something minutes or before the London session. So this right here, this is a smart money trap in my opinion. These lows, build up of lows, sweep, and a bullish break of structure and a mitigation. This is not the this is a typical smart money trap. I'm not going to be buying this, as I just explained after doing my daily cycle from the 50-minute time frame. This is most likely going to be a trap, or it's simply just going to give a bit of reaction then failed, or maybe a bit of reaction to come to some supply zone. Now I'm also noticing this supply zone right here, not a key area to look for sales, but we'll update ourselves once London session is open. Alright, so we have this build up of liquidity right here. We have the inducement, we have the break of structure, and we have the mitigation, and we have the continuation to the downside. So we have a nice liquidity cycle of supply right here. This is where we left the imbalance. So let me change the color because this is kind of nice zone. So this is a nice zone because it led to the final push, or how do we call it? It led to a break of structure and also on liquidity. So in terms of supply, that's a nice zone. Now price might just go bullish to this extent into this supply, and price give a bearish confirmation, then we can look for sales, right? Price might just continue selling, and maybe once we have tackled all this liquidity, price might give us a bullish confirmation, and maybe we look for buys to tackle those supply zone and maybe go to Asian high. So there are a lot of roadmaps for price to move, but we are not going to be married to any buyers right now. We are just going to follow market structure, liquidity cycle, and daily cycle. We are just going to wait and see how price develops and give us a valid roadmap, a valid cycle that we can trade off with a high probability. So this is how I'm framing my day, and this will be all for now. All right, thanks for watching.